And join JBP doesn't necessarily mean in everything. JBP can also be transactional.
Yeah.
But it can be collaborative, and then it'd be codependent, or codependent and then collaborative. So it depends on where you want. Not every businesses have to be the epitome of JBP. But going back to the relationship part of it is, how comfortable are you with that other person around on that table? So as account managers, the majority of those interactions is what we drive. We have to put together the marketing people need to talk together. We set up those meetings. Logistics, finance, top to top happens. That's the beginning. But when it comes to holding the relationship in those meetings, that's what we did.
That, yeah.
Sales is one part of it. The selling of it. The rest of it is people management.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Sanbonani Dumelang. You know what it is. Welcome to the Ebozi Show. My name is Thabo Moloi, and this is the show where we sit down with real industry trailblazers to give you some thoughts, wisdoms, and insights to help take your career and your business to the next level. I am so excited. I know I say I'm always excited, but today I'm more especially excited because we sit down with someone that I admire, who's just an all-round badass. Badass when it comes to sales. He's from Lusaka in Zambia, but he grew up in South Africa, studied at the University of Cape Town where he completed a BCom in philosophy, politics and economics. His career started at the global consumer goods company Unilever in a department called customer development, primarily driven around sales. So he's a all-round sales guy, a lot of depth and pedigree when it comes to sales, and experience overseas as well, where he worked in the Philippines for a year as a channel marketing manager. Then he came back to South Africa to continue to grow his sales career from strength to strength. He also joined Nike, where he was a senior strategic account manager. He spent a couple of years there doing amazing things, and today he is the regional commercial manager at Pernod Ricard. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Michael Kaniki. Big Mike?
Hey, thank you. Yeah.
Hey, how's that for an intro?
Yeah, I've never actually been introduced like that. And you know my CV better than I do.
Yeah, you have to be prepared, eh?
Thanks for having me.
CV of what, 11 years?
Cheap as I'm old now. Huh?
Hey, do you feel like a Bali?
Bruh, when I look at the mirror and I'm like, why is my hair going? But hey. Yeah, no, man. No, thanks for having me.
Where does it all begin? I mean, Zambia,
sure.
South Africa, philosophy, politics and economics, and
then look,
sales.
No, clearly I don't want to stick to one thing. Huh? I like moving around. So no, from a personal level, I think I was just lucky to move around a bit because of my dad was involved in academia. So spent some time in the US, growing up there as a youngster. Yeah. Because he was doing his PhD there, so we spent some time there, and then we moved back to Zambia for a couple of years. Yeah. Got a call from the University of Natal, which was what it was called back in the day. It said come to Maritzburg. Yeah. So I spent some time in Maritzburg from about grade 2. Okay. Up until matric. So I was originally a KZN boy. Really? Yeah. So I've got some Zulu in me. Okay. Yeah.
Shout out to the Zulus watching.
Yeah. But then I got an opportunity to go to Cape Town. Because when deciding on what I wanted to study, there were a few things that were on the table. Obviously, growing up, engineering, medicine, and whatnot. And then in my matric year, I was looking, can I do any of these professions for the rest of my life? I don't really know what I wanted to do, but I had an interest in politics, I had an interest in the social side, but then also had the financial interest. So the only university that was offering it at that time was UCT. Was the only one. So I was like, oh, let's go and spend some time at the mountain. So I was down in Cape Town for a couple of years. Met some good guys there, some good guys and girls there, in my final year, Unilever came knocking. Actually, in my penultimate year, just before I finished, Unilever started with this graduate program called IBMC, Interactive Business Management Challenge. Okay. Yeah. And a couple of guys in the year before me, went there. You might know a couple of them. Marco, Yes. Mapale, Marlon. A few of those guys were the trailblazers, if I could put it that, for the guys who moved into Unilever. So, they went on that course. So they went on that challenge the year before, A few of us went down to Durban to check them out when it was happening. Actually, no, that was a year later. They came back and told us it was still university.
Yeah.
That this is awesome. This awesome, company, Unilever. But back in the day, no one really knew what Unilever was, because it was Lever Brothers and Ponds.
Yeah.
But your parents know. They're like, Lever Ponds,
Lever Ponds,
what's this? Omo.
Yeah.
So the guys came back and told us, no, there's this awesome challenge, and so they all managed to get jobs straight out of university.
Sure.
They were living their best life, still, head on shoulders. They were really, still humble guys. We stayed very good friends, obviously. And the next year, I went into the application, obviously deciding on what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Am I going to go into banking? I did some interviews with Investec. Am I going to go into energy? I did some interviews with Shell. And Unilever came through in February. Went through a few of these interviews. A few of the guys from UCT that you probably know as well. Bakani was on there. William van der Westhuizen. We were all together there, and we went onto this course, and we spent 3 days in Durban. They called back to say, listen, why don't you come through for an internship for 3-4 weeks in July of your summer holidays?
Sure.
It's like, and you're going to get paid. And I was like, well, it's either I'm going to the club or else I'm going to the club to get paid. Well, not really, but you know what I mean? I can, I spent 3 or 4 weeks getting some work experience, So it was awesome. Spent 3 weeks in Durban in my final year, got a salary, got a car.
Wow.
It was fantastic. And then a week or two later, I got a call from Andrew Epsey, and I can remember that 2 weeks later, and he was like, listen, Michael, we want you. And I just had one course to finish that year, so I could start, afterwards, because clearly I was playing the year before. So most of the people were meant to start in January of 2008, but I had finished in the middle of the year, so September the 11th or something like that, I started. And that was the beginning of a fantastic journey with Unilever.
And you started out as an assistant in CD. And you had did you have an idea of what CD is and what sales is, or was it something that was presented on the table and you were like, hey, let's see how it goes?
Two-part answer to that. So when applying for the internship the year before, obviously you have all these designations: customer development, sales, research and development, finance, and all in varsity is maths and economics and all that stuff. You don't understand the functional roles, but doing a bit of research in the prior year, I actually applied for CD. So when I went through for my IBMC challenge and then internship, I kind of got immersed into what I would be doing. So when I was doing my internship, I was working with the ShopRite team on spreads, margarine, spreads and ice cream. So I kind of had an understanding of, over those 3 weeks, kind of gave me an understanding of how things fitted together. Because you obviously had some guys, who went into the marketing space. The CD guys had, several channels. So, national account management, category management, and those type of things. Shopper was still quite early. So I fortunately had a bit of an opportunity to have a taste of what CD was about. And then when I came through as to be fully employed, fortunately I moved straight into the account space. The theory of work and the reality of work are very two different things. But the atmosphere was fantastic to learn. As when I first started, even though I had I came in there slightly before everyone else, maybe 4 months, September. About 3 or 4 months just before everyone else. I think the atmosphere of the place was really what gave me a stronger sense of confidence and being able, because imagine you go into work and you have the opportunity to you've worked through, you've either gone to university with these guys, and even if you didn't go to university with the guys, you did internship, and even if you didn't do internship, they kind of get the similar type of character, not as in we are the same people, but driven people who are motivated, not necessarily, yes, they were the top students, but not necessarily looking for the Einsteins, but people who want to be leaders of business 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And leaders doesn't necessarily mean CEO. It means, how you impacting the person next to you. 100%. So, so when, going back to the question of if I knew what I was doing, at the start, obviously I was like, whoa, what the heck is this? The Excel spreadsheets that I dealt with in information systems is very different to the reality that you deal with, and the type of questions and the soft matters. I think I remember getting in trouble because of the tone of my emails.
Really?
I still get in trouble for that now. But now I'm just like, you know what I mean. But so I remember it was a quick learning curve. But I think because you're around people who are very similar to you, whereas again similar in the sense that everyone's quite motivated, and upbringing. So like as much as you compete, it was like, oh, what are you doing and how can I help you? You understand because you went through that. You went through that as well. So it was cool. So when the rest of the team came through in January or so, you could imagine there's about 20 of us from all over South Africa, from Wits, from UCT, from Rhodes, UJ, whatever it might be, and you all go through this thing and you're all going through the same pressure at the same time. So you all have GTMs, CPMs, or go-to-market meetings, channel whatever there were,
all these different forums.
all these forums, and you kind of have to find your way through it, but you're not necessarily alone because everyone's going through it at the same time. So you've got someone who's in category management that you need to as
and
a account
that's so key as well. I remember in my experience, also not knowing what CD is. Reading about it on paper and on websites, and then getting immersed into the culture. You find a lot of strength through other people.
100%.
I always say to 100%. A lot of entrepreneurs that isolation is death. When you're by yourself all the time and you have no one to draw strength from, you'll crumble, you'll implode. Because you don't have people who have walked the road before you to say, listen, hey, watch out here. Who can pick you up when you're feeling weak. And what I like about sales environments is that there is a high energy
all the time.
Even when you have like really poor days and you're like, or the numbers are looking pretty crappy, but because the atmosphere around you, everybody's like, chasing, that really like gets you going as well.
No, 100%, and I think that's probably one thing. I can't speak for any other function because I've never been, but I'll tell you the one thing that I remember that even when I spent some time in the Philippines. So I mean, just running down the line a bit, so even spending some time in South Africa, 4 or 5 years, and then moving to Asia, as much as you can imagine, Unilever is, you expect Unilever to be the same regardless. Yes, of course, the processes are fundamentally the same, the terminologies are the same, the brands are the same. Of course, now the differences are the route to market, the customers, but when you're in the office dealing with fundamentally different people because of the culture. I mean, imagine going from Africa, South Africa, which in itself is a very, very different to the rest of Africa, and then shipping yourself across to 6 hours east into the Philippines, and you're there, and people speak. It's fine, you can speak the language and whatnot, but there's the nuances of culture.
The culture, it's densely populated.
How do you talk? What do you do? You're the only black guy there, but that's not really the issue. It's just more a case of, when times are down. One of the things that I learned, and one of the things that people told me before going, is that motivation isn't something that you get from other people. You have to be self-motivated.
100%,
so it's people always like, oh no, this person doesn't motivate me. No, that's not how it works. And I remember that, and that's one of the things I remember when I was having tough days in the middle. You don't have your mates.
Sure.
You don't have your mom. You don't have girlfriend. You don't have. There was no. I mean, Instagram wasn't really there yet, so it's not like you by yourself.
No one you can.
And I don't mind that, because I was like, I took it as a challenge. But when you're having a tough day, you literally have to go into the mirror, as cheesy as it sounds, and be like, I am going to be the best me. Literally, like I remember for like a week, I was like, shit, I don't know what the hell is going on. I am seeing absolute flame. I'm a failure. But then I was just like, oh, listen, what's the difference between this and when you first started? It's just about the people around you. So don't think about motivation and this about the other people. Just go on what you know. Stop making the relationship.
That's it.
And literally, that's after a couple of months. I mean, it took a couple of months, but I think it's been the same. Wherever it's changed.
It also happens to me as well. I mean, not as drastic as going to another country, but you'll find yourself in a new environment, and because you're so close to the detail, you lose perspective. All right. So when you're close to the detail, problems look bigger. All right. And perspective is one of those things that are so important in sales. Because if you're close to the detail and everything looks big, then you lose that motivation.
And you don't have the perspective.
But when you take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 steps back, to say, actually, I went to UCT, and I didn't know anyone, but I was able to make these relationships.
100%.
And I got into this huge organization, this global juggernaut with people from all over the place. And there again, as overwhelming as it was, I made relationships.
100%.
So I think it's important in sales, especially when you find yourself in those tricky situations, just to take those 2 or 3 steps back to say, you know what, as difficult as this is, if I've weathered the storm through A, B, and C, why can't I get through this?
Oh, and I couldn't agree more, and I think you've probably called it out. Again, I only speak for the space that I'm in, which is the sales CD function, because I don't know any better. I don't have the luxury, some people who've managed to move across.
Yeah.
But I think you called out that I think the relationships, the motivation is probably one of the areas I would call out as probably one of the most important. Yes, you can have the technical knowledge. Some people kind of go into that technical space where they want to be the sheer brilliant at category management or whatever it might be, or finance. And some people are just brilliant in general. They can do lots of different things. Whereas I think where I've benefited in my career by my upbringing and just the way I am as a character is about probably relationship building. I think it's kind of like that the empathy of, just what you call it, take a step back, just have an understanding, or try and put yourself in another person's person's shoes, because especially when you're meeting customers and whatnot, you always get told, you can remember as a youngster, you remember going in as a grad, buyers are like this, ShopRite is like, pick and pay is like that. Yeah, I'm sure they are. But at the end of the day, really just people. And they're like, okay, what is their motivation? So it's always kind of like you have to take a step back and understand, even in the office, what is the motivation about the next person next to me? So when I'm sitting there and I'm like in there, I'm like, okay, what does that person actually want? And it's strenuous because you have to take time, and building those relationships takes time. It can take months, it can take years. It's a lot of talking, but if it works for some people that way, it works for other people. So for me, it's just, what does that other person want? What is their motivation? Because that is probably that makes it, after some time, you're like, oh, okay, that's why they make that decision.
That's so interesting, because, all the people that I've observed who have built, a lot of tenure, so they've stood the test of time, and they've delivered results across different companies or different industries. There's two things that stick out, and you've mentioned both of them. One is this self-awareness. So this ability to look within yourself and understand your strengths, but more importantly, what you speak about in terms of motivation. I found in my career, as I grew into leadership roles, you find that people expect you to motivate them as a leader. And if you expect me to motivate you as a leader, it means that when I'm not around, you're not going to be able to deliver.
100%.
Right? But you need to be motivated, and I need to channel that in the right direction.
100%.
So in order for you to advance in a career in sales, it's important to understand your self-awareness and what really drives you, because like you're saying, there are going to be days where you're going to have to look within and be like, okay, Mike, Thabo Moloi, let's go.
There's no one else.
There's no one else.
I must put in the time.
And the second thing that you touch on, which is absolutely paramount, is empathy. I think that for me is the success of sales. That one word. If you're empathetic and you're able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else, and like what you're saying, I also, when I stepped into it, there were these perceptions, right? That buyers are like this, that buyers are tough.
It's a job.
But
if you know what the job is, then you're like, oh, okay,
exactly. And it's like we work with a lot of entrepreneurs in the township and in markets that are not as big, and we work with a lot of small businesses, and it's a really tough environment for a lot of entrepreneurs. But it's tough for them because of the perceptions that they believe, not really the truth of the reality. So what you're saying is powerful to say, there's going to be perceptions around people and markets, but you're not really going to know
until you
take your shoes off and put the shoes on the buyer.
100%. Yeah. So I think that's probably in general, like regardless. And so yes, of course, because we have been in the sales function, a lot of that is like relationship building, and you're like, what do we learn? Where the rubber hits the road. Where the rubber hits the road. Yeah. So whatever. But like the relationships, that's just like one type of relationship, because you remember that the majority of the time that you spend is, well, not the majority, but if you're not in the sales function, not in a customer facing role, is in the office. So your relationships are with sales, marketing, finance, HR, logistics, supply chain, pick the tea lady,
So it's important to understand the whole value chain.
The
whole value chain, because you need to be able to build relationships across.
Where can I influence? Tick, 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 tick. I mean, if you look at it in the P&L, okay, but like, cheapest, where do I affect the P&L? I'm probably right at the top, where, the number of cases or the number of bottles, whatever it might be that I sell. And as you move down the P&L to some degree,
Yes.
there's always people that you need to influence. Obviously, when you come down, cost of sales is going to be the supply chain guys. How can I influence? I know that their target is predominantly around cost saving.
Yeah.
The marketing guys, we know that in the second half of the year or the last quarter of the year, the budget's going to be cut. So what is their motivation? They probably want to make all their stuff look great and flashy and sign off everything at the beginning of the year. So again, if you're thinking of it in that systematic way, if I look at a P&L or whatever that value chain might be, and I know that the business holistically at the end needs to have a profit of what, where do I need to influence those different people? And it sounds quite not necessarily cynical. I can't think of the term right now. It sounds quite,
but it's I get what you're saying, and the reality is a lot of people find themselves in this binary thinking, which is problematic.
Either or.
It's either or, where don't tell me about anything else. I'm a sales guy. I'm responsible for top line, turnover. That's it.
That's the old school. Those are the guys that we went in with.
And that's the wrong way of thinking about it.
Unfortunately, those are the guys we went in with.
It's still prevalent in some spaces,
100%.
dangerously enough. But it's so important to have a perspective of the entire value chain.
Yeah.
To understand that actually, as much as there's a top line, there is a bottom line.
Yeah.
And actually, the bottom line is more important because that's where everything comes from. So having an understanding of the value chain gives you perspective around, forecasting and how important it is to properly, scientifically, be able to say to your demand planners, this is the number that I'm going to chase in a month. Because then that speaks to whatever capacity they have in the factories to produce that.
Is the marketing team going to do
it's
the
the marketing team and then
promotion at the right time?
Speaking to the finance guys to say, okay, guys, run me through the numbers.
Yeah.
Which are the products that are more margin accretive or are more profitable? Let's try to make sure that our mix makes sense from a top line and bottom line.
It's literally what I've been going through for 3 weeks now because we're planning for next year.
Yeah.
So every day, it's literally the conversation.
How do you prepare for that? Like, let's take demand planning as one aspect. What do you look at? How do you prepare for it? And what do you leverage to make sure that you've got this perspective and you try to put together these numbers that make business sense?
So it's a good one. And it's almost like I've regressed in my career. When I say regressed, so Unilever extremely
there's a lot of rigor,
order, supply planner, demand planner, regression analysis. You've got Marlon Bowman there talking his nonsense. Sorry, Marlon,
Shout out to Marlon.
Shout out to Marlon. But anyway, so you've got those guys who you've got systems, you've got structure. It's a business that have been there for 100 years. And so stuff works, and you understand everything that works in the process. Step 1, step 2, step 3. There's what was our calendar that we had? What was our ops? What was that big colorful calendar that we had? I don't know what that thing was.
Yeah,
but I all the meetings by day, 365 days, super organized. So you understand the process. So once you go into that, you understand a process of how things are done. You might not necessarily be linked to everything, but you can understand that there's a process. I moved over to Nike years later, and you're dealing with just Nike products. There's not, sure there's competition, but the focus on Nike is Nike is Nike.
One brand.
So cool, Adidas, you do your thing, but we're not really competing. We're going to do what we do, but then also you now have to think very differently because there are nuances in that business. If you go into North Africa, if you think about just general apparel, if you go into the slightly more Islamic centric countries, where Algeria is next to Morocco, if you just look on a map, you think, they must be the same. They're both Islamic. No. Two different countries, of course. Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, we're all around, but we're not the same people. Those two different countries, they're both Islamic, but when you go into there, you have to understand the nuance of the people before you even get into the demand planning, because your merchandising manager will say, okay, Thabo, as an account manager, we want to drive 5-inch shorts, hot pants, which are cool for running, but we know that there's a cultural nuance around in the culture there. That's not, you won't be very revealing, but in Algeria, you might be able to sell, because Algeria is more stringent when it comes to that versus Morocco. You might be like, okay, I can sell a few in Morocco, but absolutely no product in Algeria, just by that. So you need to first understand who your customer is, what the buyer in there might want, and then take that knowledge back into your team, because you'd be like, guys, global, USA might want to sell 5,000 of these, but it's against the law. So there's that. But even with a global company like that, the systems aren't there. So you kind of have to, what you've learned from Unilever, put in systems. Okay, what is the structure? How do we do this? These are the type of meetings. Who needs to be involved in? Because as much as, yes, we're probably the most important when it comes to the Maramba because we have to deliver it. When I say most important, we are responsible, rather. We have to deliver it. The reality is there's so many other people that have to before you get there.
Yeah, definitely.
I come into Pernod, and it's a totally new region. Our region's only been around 2-3 years. Of course, there's no system. So, I've gone from the most technologically advanced system into slightly less. But I guess that's the reason that I'm in the job, because I need to bring expertise.
You need to bring that expertise.
So when it comes back to your question about demand planning, I think there's maybe 2 or 3 things. The first thing would be, again, understanding the customer. And because of our jobs are quite high pressured and you need to be in and out, you don't necessarily always have the opportunity to be at the foot or at the shelf or with the consumer, with the customer, like we did in our early days when they're trying to teach you this. So it's understanding, making the relationship with your customer. Even if you're not, my guy, just let's have a drink.
Yeah, let's have a drink. Let me know what's happening.
Let's go chill.
What's going on?
What up?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Sure.
Tell me a story. And you just build the relationship, and the guys will come out and tell you. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're having to deal with people all the day, all the time, every day, you want to build a healthy relationship with them and some sense of confidence and camaraderie. So if we're sitting together and you're my buyer in Egypt, you're going to tell me what's happening in the region. You're going to give me those insights, the undercurrents of what's happening. So a lot of what I did when it comes to demand planning is understanding the customer, building that, and then it's just trial and error. A lot of it is literally trial and error. I mean, I moved into this business during a business planning stage. I'd never dealt in beverages or spirits, whatever it might be, especially in a region where there's no history. A lot of the brands are new. There's no process. So of course, all the theory that I bring in is one thing, which is fine for the what do you call it, for the model, but the reality is what happens. I'm only really understanding it 12, 13, 14 months later.
Sure.
To be like, okay, because I've built the relationship, I understand. So there's a relationship, then there's just sheer immersing yourself in whatever the brand or the product is.
And that's so important because in business, you're always looking for growth, right? And for you to find growth, you got to immerse yourself in different spaces. And with an open eye, to try and put assumptions aside. That's where you understand the nuances. Because when you look at it geographically, right, like you're saying, Algeria, Morocco, you assume that because they're close together, there will be similarities.
That must be the same.
But they're so distinct.
100%.
Even in South Africa.
Our 9 provinces. Our 9 provinces.
You go to a Gauteng, you go to a Durban or KZN, it's very different.
Music is different.
The
style is different.
And as a salesperson, the more you understand those nuances, the more your ability to sell and speak to them. Because the worst thing that can happen is you treat everybody the same.
Making assumptions. Hey, in 2019, boss.
And
can't make assumptions.
I like the fact that the scientific exercise of demand planning needs to come from a real insight, like a real consumer insight. In my career, the first thing I was taught is that great selling comes from great sell-through. All right. If you understand the sell-through and you can pitch that to your client in a business-to-business model, then it's easy for you to sell in. All right. And to understand sell-through, then you need to understand the shopper insights.
Who's buying this stuff?
Who's buying the stuff? Why are they buying it? Why are they buying yours versus competitors, or why are they buying competitors versus yours? And then when you're able to speak to that, you're able then to build it up ladder by ladder by ladder until it comes to a number. So what you're saying is so paramount. And when you're in an environment that you don't know, or you're in an industry that you don't know, then you gotta ask. You gotta
ask questions.
You gotta, when you're in a room where you're the smartest person in the room, they always say you're in the wrong room.
Hey, boss, I'm clearly in the right room all the time. I'm always in the right room.
Which is difficult, right? Because you feel so stupid. You're like, jeepers, I don't know this market, I don't know this category. I've got this theory. But jeepers, how do I
better not say it, because guys will be like, you haven't been reading, huh? No, but I think that's a good point, and I think it's a really, really key call out. Surrounding yourself not necessarily with just the smartest people, but surrounding yourself with a diverse group of people that can give you insights to. We were fortunate. I've just been blessed 100% in my life and I think it's just the moving around. I've had the opportunity in my life to move around
and relationships.
And some things that you miss out on, like core cultural experience of who are you culturally as a black person, who are you as a Zambian, what is your language. So other people are very strong when it comes to that, and I might not necessarily have that as strong as the next person. But I think what I've had the opportunity to do is that you can throw me anywhere, and I'll be like, cool.
And you're open to learning.
I'll be like, throw me to Russia.
Yeah.
I'll probably get killed. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. Put me in a tough situation. I'll probably be better off than the average person. Because I'm willing, like I'm open to that, and I've done it before.
And that's so important, you know, to be able to embrace that discomfort.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, people have a general proclivity to lean into areas that they're comfortable in.
Always.
And want to work from a base of knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, I know this.
Yeah.
I know this industry.
I'm
I
the
know this
subject
market.
matter.
You know, but
Get bored quickly.
growth comes from unknown.
Hey, boss, get bored quickly.
Yeah.
Get bored extremely quickly. And
You
I
know?
think all my bosses have known.
And it's scary though.
I don't know. I think I'm just been again blessed.
Yeah.
My bosses are like, this guy. Let me chow this guy.
Yeah.
And I can see he's getting bored.
Yeah.
So as soon as I can feel myself getting too comfortable is when I see that my work starts to do this.
But you learn so
You know what I
much. You learn so much. Like, I can imagine going back to Manila in the Philippines. You know, you worked on a joint business plan.
Yes.
And
yeah.
What's A.S. Watson?
A.S.
Like
Watson's,
the biggest health and beauty
in Asia,
global giants in the world. They're the biggest in the world.
actually, you're right, because it's in China. It's the biggest in the world. Yeah.
And you know, maybe you can explain quickly, you know, to the viewers watching what joint business planning is.
Okay.
And the kind of stuff that you learned from it that sort of shaped your career now.
It's like you timed it perfectly, because I was actually on a JBP workshop in Paris last week.
Really?
Taking me back like 5 years about trying to get this. And this is why I say Unilever is ahead, because we were doing JBP fundamentals in 2011 and 12.
Sure.
And you know, it comes as a discussion again now with with Pernod. But that is it. So JBP, in essence, is just, for me, is what are the synergies between two businesses to achieve a goal. So between the supplier, the customer, what are the synergies that they can find between the two that is going to result in the most efficient sell? Whatever that might be, because both businesses are there to make money.
Yeah.
But then how do you coordinate all the different functions or projects? What are the 2 or 3 big projects or functions that you want to deliver over a 3 to 5 year period? And how do you align those? So JBP, in essence, is that, where it is now in some businesses, places like Unilever and businesses that have been around for quite some time are, quite ahead, but other businesses are quite early, or quite in the rudimentary or fundamental stages of that. I'm excited by the concept of JBP. Especially in places where, it's probably a lot easier in places where you have mature markets. So you have that cooperative understanding. The functions of business are quite similar. So you have, it's not just a distributor where it's the father, the son, and the mom who run a multi-million business, but they don't understand the fundamentals. So JBP, when I worked in the Philippines, they were already ahead of South Africa, as you can imagine. So a lot of that was literally just, there was top-to-top meetings, management lower, and it's literally just setting up communication. So first thing is, where do we want to be? What's our vision? Vision is long term. What's our vision? Where's our mission? What is our strategy? Where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years? And once we know what the vision is, below that is, what are the strategies or what are the tools that we're going to use to get us to whatever those 2 or 3 things are. So if we go back to our 3+1, so if it's going to be a volume target for you over 3 years, where do we want to see? We want to see a CAGR of 25-30%. Second, what do we want to do? We want to change the way of working. We want to change the way shoppers work. We want to, 2 from a shopper. 3, there could be marketing excellence, and then 4, it could be around a CSO or developmental area. We want to, reduce our carbon footprint. And every single one of those points are going to have someone on either side of the business that need to talk on a constant basis to make sure that they're doing. So once you have those targets, it's about mere communication. Targets, and is everyone talking to each other.
Communication is so key. And it's interesting because traditionally, in terms of when I look at the South African market, and a lot of business people I've spoken to on different levels, whether it's C-suite executives on listed companies, or entrepreneurs, small business in a township one-man shop. Everybody has this very transactional perspective. where even if I'm going to be dealing with a supplier and I'm negotiating, in my mind, one of us is losing. You know, so it's like
negotiation 101.
It's very like transactional to say one of us is getting stifled here.
Someone's gonna lose here.
Whereas joint business planning sort of turns that upside down to say, okay, I'm gonna put my cards on the table.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna put your cards on the table.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna look at our entire value chain. You're gonna look at our entire value chain. We're gonna be clear around our strategic imperatives.
Yes.
You're gonna tell us your strategic imperatives. And then we're gonna look for alignments.
Yeah.
All right, and then together we're gonna try and
achieve
this common goal. That's a win-win. All right, so that for me is like a big mind shift.
Massively tricky. I agree, because how many people? I mean, even in your personal landscape with your significant other, whoever it might be, you might have this vision with this person.
Yeah.
But you might not always, depending on how comfortable you are in that relationship. So if I use the anecdote of a relationship, is we've been dating for a year or 2, 3, and you start to reveal a bit more, and then after some time you're able to elucidate what your vision might be, and then you start putting out your cards on the table for like as in that anecdote. So in the relationship with your significant other, it's very similar to the business. So how comfortable are you? And what we find in a lot of our corporates is because highly motivated guys constantly want to change. I don't want to be in the same job for 2, 3, 4 years. I want to change. I want to move. But on the other side of these businesses, they're not as progressive. So you might find a buyer who's been there for 10, 15 years, and they have a new buyer. Tomorrow's Gavin Shorter, then it's Thabo Moloi, then it's Michael Kaniki. And in 3 or 4 years, they've seen different people. So the other business also needs to be ready. And JBP doesn't necessarily mean in everything. JBP can also be transactional. But it can be collaborative, and then it'd be codependent, or codependent and collaborative. So it depends on where you want. Not every businesses have to be the epitome of JBP. But going back to the relationship part of it is, how comfortable are you with that other person around on that table? So as account managers, the majority of those interactions is what we drive. We have to put together the marketing people need to talk together. We set up those meetings. Logistics, finance, top to top happens. That's the beginning. But when it comes to holding the relationship in those meetings, that's what we did. Sales is one part of it. The selling of the rest of it is people management. So just going back to that, how not every business needs to be in JBP or the cooperative or collaborative, but
it's important to have that appreciation.
How have I built that relationship?
How have I built it?
Yo, listen, Mr. Buyer, our meeting today is going to be at the coffee shop, and I just want to find out about you. That might be a bit basic, but you understand that the nuance of what I'm saying is that
100%,
once you've built that, if it even takes 6 months, when you want to start the JBP, have a chat to your buyer.
And what I've seen as what helped me in my career is what you're saying is so true. And even when you take it to the boardroom, to say, okay, Mr. Buyer, this is what I've observed in your entire category. Because a lot of the time we come in with our brand focus. I come in representing Unilever or a Nike or a Pernod Ricard. Whereas 9 times out of 10, the buyer is responsible for either one category or multiple categories that have different manufacturers. They don't give a rat's ass about like one brand, that happens to be a market leader in some obscure region. They want to know what the category story is. And especially when you're a market leader and are able to influence, categories on a big scale, then it's important to put yourself in the buyer's shoe and then speak to that category story.
100%.
And that's what what JBP taught me. To say, okay, if we're gonna go in a collaboration or have this collaborative sort of relationship, it's me saying, I want to understand your business a bit better and help you grow your business without me selfishly looking at just my brand.
And that's I think that's one of the first things that we spoke about, is that almost that empathy part. What is this? What is your goal? Like, what is your business goal? So when you're having, that coffee around the table, a beer or tequila, whatever it might be, and you're just having a chat with it, where's your business going? Then you find out also about the relationships in the business, who the people are to influence. Oh no, this person doesn't get on with that one. It's the same. It's all and once you understand that, then you start influencing. Because another one of the roles that I was fortunate enough to have, even in Manila, and when I got back from there, was a trade category management role.
Yes.
And the perception at Unilever was, oh no, that is not as prestigious. So I was like, well, okay, but have you done it? I've done all the roles. Well, shopper market. I've done all the roles at Unilever. When I was there, I was like, I want to do everything. Everything. And I had the opportunity to do it. I did all the roles. So when the TCM role came apart, and that was my first management role, it was like, okay, it's almost like you're a category manager and a NAM and a marketer. So you need to be able to, all at once, you need to be able to go and sit in front of a buyer or a category team and talk about the category.
Yeah.
Although you are Unilever.
How it's shopped. The
make
decision-making
a tree and make sure that it sounds reasonable, because of course we have all the knowledge in Unilever. I mean, not all the knowledge, we have all the info.
Yeah.
What's it?
Nielsen and all these data sources.
I pick it? I can spit the numbers at you. I'm sure I can still tell you that the fastest growing category, 2011, 43.1%. Exterior, that was the highest share that we ever have. We have all the stats, but when you're sitting there, buyers like, okay, what is their motivation?
Yeah.
Well, I need to be Pick and Pay needs to be ShopRite. Pick and Pay needs to be ShopRite, Spar, Woolies, whatever it might be. But internally in their businesses, how do I be the most prestigious category fastest growing? It's exactly the same. It doesn't care which brand. So if you go there and you be like, okay, cool, as a trade category manager, okay, I'm not going to go with a massive project that's going to change all your stores. I've got this initiative. You've got 400 stores. I've got a goal. I need your help. You also need to open up, be like, listen, for me to get ahead, I need your help. And you just need to be open. I'm like, obviously you don't have to put all your cards out, but there's
sort of vulnerability.
There's ego in the business. People always want to feel like they're helping you.
Yeah.
So you tell your buyer, listen, struggling, whatever it might be, and we've got this target, and they want to go out into all your stores by the end of this year.
Yeah.
And I know you need to do this, but I know you control the stores. So listen, can we try this new shelf relay? With all that, I brought you all the stats. It's not just about us, but I'm going to grow your category from 15% to 30% by putting in liquid, whatever it might be. Let's not test it in all the stores.
Yeah.
Give me 10 stores, 20 stores out of your full for 3 months.
Yeah.
If it works, let's go. Because if it doesn't work, you're not in trouble, I'm not in trouble. So it's also about the vulnerability, coming up with a plan, making sure that in the JB thing, it's not about you just trying to jump from 0 to 100 in the first year. Small steps.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult.
I like that approach so much as well, because salespeople in general, we're very ambitious, right?
Yeah.
We want to change the world
Tomorrow.
preferably like tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you can change the world, but there's an approach to do it.
It's not always sustainable.
And what you're saying is going to a buyer and saying, listen, 10 stores.
Yeah.
I mean, what's 10 stores in the bigger scheme of 400, 500 stores?
Half the people, 80% of people don't even know those stores exist.
So your downside is what, like 1%, half a percent, but the upside is like, we
test it.
We can test it, and if it works, we can scale.
Yeah.
So I think it's important as a salesperson, even as an entrepreneur, to always build the model first and perfect that model on a small scale before you want to go out there. And that this idea of testing, test the market, test with a few stores, because you can have a great idea, but it might not necessarily be a great opportunity.
Yeah, it might not be practical.
It might not be practical. So what you're saying is so refreshing in the way that you approach it, to say, let's try it in 10 stores.
Yeah.
And again, it's saying, Mr. Buyer, I'm being vulnerable. This is what I need, but I understand your business. Here are the insights. You're looking at the category story. Okay, cool. Let's build from there.
100%. And if I don't, help me.
Yeah.
Let's tweak it.
Yeah.
I'll do 5, you do another 5 with you. And actually, that's what we did. Is I'm going to do my planograms.
Yeah.
You do yours in a couple of stores. And let's go test.
You gotta be agile.
Let's go test.
Gotta be like
you gotta be,
twinkle
because
toes.
hey, you need to learn to tell a story. But and that's so I think so I mean, just again to your point, JBP and all those things, and a lot of these things is just what is the influence, or what is the motivation of the other person or the other party, the person sitting across you.
And I think another thing that's key is understanding your route to market and understanding your customer's route to market. And the various channels within that, and which channel makes sense for which brand, because that level of detail then allows you to be much more impactful.
Yeah.
Whereas I see a lot of big business as well make this mistake where they just overinvest in channels and route to markets that make zero sense, for their brands and for that category. Either they want to develop a route to market or they want to invest in a route to market, So I think it's key to understand the channels that you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
And then understand what makes sense
Yep.
and which levers to pull in terms of channels. So you've worked on different route to markets.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine the Nike model with distributors and partners.
Different store types. What? You're
How was that like? Because they've also now, I've read of late, they're over-indexing their investment in terms of direct to consumer.
100%.
But historically, there was this wholesale.
Just want to be
and
everywhere. Nike, extremely, extremely complex yet interesting business. Complex if you're out of it and you're just getting into it, but also quite simple.
Yeah.
It's one brand.
Yeah.
Execution, regardless of where you are in the world, must be there.
Sure.
So moving to that business was surprising. You expect Nike to be everywhere. Like when Africa, Nike's the biggest brand, must be everywhere. But you go in there, you're like, no.
It's not.
Unless you have the retail landscape for this brand, we're not going to be in there.
And distribution is so important.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, almost think of it as Gucci or Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a Gucci or Louis Vuitton store or like the real stuff. I'm talking about legit stuff.
Yeah.
In the middle of, downtown, wherever it might be. Pick a city, pick a small city. Even in South Africa, even in our big cities, we don't just generally have a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci store because our market isn't as it's not there, and that's Nike.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's many different routes that they have because it's the one brand, and they have the one brand but the different categories, but they want the execution to fundamentally be the same. Of course, there's tiering, but it's still fundamentally Nike. It's one brand, regardless of where you go. You expect the quality and the execution to be there. So for example, again, if you go into West Africa, where in Nigeria, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've worked there, but in an economy of 200 million people, or that with the last census that was done, or 190, there's only 10 malls.
Sure.
Like in the whole country, like malls, and we're not talking Sandton or Eastgate. We're talking like a strip mall. Like we're not talking
like a big.
We're not talking a massive.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Yeah, triple, quadruple, 10-foot story. And place. We're talking about just like a normal strip mall.
Yeah. So what is it like? It's a proliferation of independently owned stores.
Pretty much, and then also just because Africa, we have not developed that to that level just yet when it comes to retail. It's just generally not there. We're extremely blessed, or blessed if you want to call it that, in South Africa, in that we've got access to a lot of these things. So I think we've got the most malls anywhere in the world. Like, I've never seen malls like I've seen in South Africa. There's a strip mall around every corner. There's a mass mall around the corner. There's a garage here. We've got retail in our big spaces. And you don't even see that in Europe or the US. Australia, there's no country. But that aside, you go in from a Nike sip. Nike will not go into a market just for the sake of going into that. It needs to make sure that it's got a retail landscape where you can have a minimum size store. For me to open up a Nike store, a Nike owned store or a distributor store with a swoosh on the door, official, has to have at least 80 square meters. And once you have that space, Nike's only going to put certain products in there.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you sometimes wonder, like, you walk into a Nike or an Adidas store, it might be, you'd be like, well, cheapest, why can't I get my Jordans here? Why can't I get my Yeezys here? No, it's not for you. If you want that, you go into that specific outlet. So they're extremely controlled about their product, where they want it, who should be getting it, and that, so very clear route to markets, which is developed in South Africa, but in the rest of Africa, that's what I was trying to do. So how can I find spaces to get Nike stores, official stores? What are sporting goods stores? So for example, your Total Sports, your sports, or where do I find athletic specialty, your sports scene? In there, you've got different categories, and you'd have different shoppers that will go into there. So you also need to understand what Nike's strategy is. Where do they want to be, and where do they want to expand? So that was it's a very good question when it comes to route to market, because depending on your company, it's very vast. Unilever, because some of the goods are highly commoditized and relatively entry level. Everyone uses washing powder. Everyone uses 90% use a roll on, a lotion. So there you probably want to be everywhere. Ubiquity is
Mass
it.
market,
You want to be extremely, but you still want your execution to be great. You move into a place like Nike, we can be in most places if it's just a T-shirt.
Yeah.
But depending on your range, if you don't have the landscape in the middle of Dakar, you know, we're not going to do it there. We might give a distributor. You might have a little product here in a multi versed store, and then Pernod in itself. For example, you're not going to have a Shivers 25-year-old that's going to cost you X amount. In the middle of the, I wouldn't say an informal settlement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So depending on the product, depending on the shopper, the channels are there. And another thing that you called out is sometimes we just want to do everything.
Yeah.
It's the small steps. What is the strategy of the company? What is the strategy of the brand, and where can you do it? Because I guess the ambition is that the difficulty where we find ourselves in is because we are where the rubber hits the road is when the sales are low. They're gonna come and ask you the question. Be like, "Oh, just go and sell there."
Because it's
That's
interesting.
the right thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right thing.
I mean, you're like front and center when it comes to like the African markets, right? South Central Africa.
Yeah.
So you sales planning for Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, Botswana.
Yeah.
And I mean, Africa is exciting. Everybody's excited. 1.1 billion people,
Yeah.
lot of youth,
Yeah.
lot of upside in terms of GDP growth.
Yeah.
But it's like also very challenging.
Hey, boss.
So when you're building sales plans for some of these markets who look exciting on paper, what are some of the things that you're confronted with in terms of challenges? Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are watching this who are building businesses geared to go into Africa. But what are some of the things that they need to be mindful of when they're preparing these sales plan and sales strategies around that?
Spend a day or two,
a
week in each market, then come talk to me. Not even in a bad way.
Yeah.
Because even for me, I need to be there more, and I'm just like, what the hell?
Sure.
So even if I just transition, and the reason that I I've moved around a bit is because I wanted to work a lot more, in the African space. So for Unilever, I had the opportunity, with SPA to kind of deal with the region, Nike in Northwest, Central Africa, now in Southern Africa. And the nuances by country are just like, it's crazy. Just by the political and the history around Africa, you also see that the Mozambique, Angola, both historically Portuguese, very, very different.
Sure.
Nigeria, Ghana, relatively English, totally different.
Sure.
The economy is there, very different. Nigeria, 90%, don't quote me, a lot, more than 50% of their GDP comes from oil. Commodity based, but they don't refine the oil. They don't refine the oil. So when the oil slump happened in 2014, it dropped from 150 a barrel down to 80, I think went to 27. You could imagine if you lose 70% of the value of your GDP.
That's it.
There's no forex. Nike only pays you can only pay Nike in dollars unless you're in South Africa.
Sure.
So all the markets that were Nike they worked on in Africa, you must pay me in dollars. What happened? What was the Arab Springs that happened in 2014 during the same time? All the things that happened there. You can imagine those were our markets.
Sure.
Arab Springs was happening in Egypt, which is a massive market.
Sure.
El Shabaab, whatever was happening in Kenya. You need to understand these are burgeoning markets. The political landscape that's happening in just recently just happened over the last 3 to 4 months in Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe, our gateway, our breadbasket, or our gateway into the rest of Africa. I can't get I can, but it's very difficult and expensive. I can't get a truck or a product, anything from South Africa into the rest of Africa unless it goes through Bridge, which is Zimbabwe. If Zimbabwe is going through turmoil and they close all the borders, you can't get anything into Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Mozambique you can. It's difficult. So understand going into Africa, and I hate using that term, but going into the rest of Africa, just spend some time and get a friend. It's like when I tell white guys, get a black friend. Get an African friend. Get someone. Don't even and it's the analogy of just go in there and spend some time, read up about it. Even the reading is totally different. To the reality. So it's immersing yourself. And it's going back to the first thing, it's the empathy. Just go and put yourself. What is it like in the shoes of a Zimbabwean day to day? Go and understand that all the transactions that they do is digital.
Yeah.
Kenya, digital.
Yeah.
We in South Africa think, we got Facebook, we got all that. No, we ain't digital. We still walking around with cash and credit cards and all this stuff. Those guys click.
Kenya with mobile payments.
So they do.
Worlds ahead.
So going into the rest of Africa, massive opportunity. We're so rich, we are balling. Just don't know what to do with the money and how to manage it. And that's our jobs.
Yeah.
It's our jobs. We've had the opportunity to be educated in that space and have this experience of that. So we are there to go and educate people. It's not about being better or not. It's just be like, this is I've had the opportunity to be educated. I'm gonna go in that market and educate my fellow African.
Yeah.
You know. So when you go into when you go into Zambia, when you go in and you be like, okay, there's some things that work there, but there's also fundamentals of business that regardless of where you are, you need to go in there. So when entrepreneurs, and I'm not one, I'm just a business person, and I can't speak from an entrepreneurial point of view, but when you want to go into the rest of the market, spend some time. It's expensive, but spend the time. And if you can't, get a mate, ask some questions, read up, watch YouTube, Twitter, just immerse yourself, read about it, because it's 54 states. How many? 55? Are we only 54 states? The biggest continent. It's extremely different. The Zimbabwean and Zambian, as much as we are this close, we're also that different. South Africa, as much as we're this close, 9 provinces, guy from the Eastern Cape is very different to a guy from Limpopo. Mozambique, Angola, 2 different markets. So the mindset. So when going into there, you need to make sure that you understand the people that you're dealing with, and the nuances of their culture, their language, their history, 100%. All of this type of thing.
And that's so important. And for me, in this day and age, you got to be thinking about, how do I internationalize my business, right? Because the world is more connected than ever.
Dude.
Every single day, the connections are growing. I mean, yesterday I was speaking to a guy from Namibia, and we're about to link up. I mean, we met over Facebook through a post. And none of that would have happened a few years ago, No. And that is going to be the norm. Where I can go on Amazon and I can buy a product.
Get it in 2 days.
Get it in a couple of days, and that product is manufactured
in China. Marketed in America.
100%. I can produce a product here and sell it abroad.
Iceland, if you want.
But the success around that is, immersing yourself in that culture.
100%.
Whether you want to be on the selling end or whether you want to buy from various environments to find quality and value, you got to immerse yourself in that culture. So, I love that so much. And I love the understanding of value chain that we spoke about earlier, when it comes to building sustainable business and building sustainable sales strategy. Because if you are going to go into an Africa market and you are going to go into a certain industry, it's immersing yourself in the culture, immersing yourself in the industry, immersing yourself in the entire value chain, and how that works. So thank you so much for breaking that down. My last question.
Cool.
All right. I always ask people just to share their wisdom. So there's a lot of youngsters who watch this.
Because of my wife.
Youngsters who are in either varsity or in high school, who are thinking about a career in sales or who are thinking of starting their own businesses, and any wisdom that you can impart that has enabled you to get into these spaces and deliver in these spaces and continue to grow in these spaces. What wakes you up and gets you there and keeps you going?
Sure. I think the first thing I would probably say is always look to learn. I know that's kind of a cliche, but what I mean by that is be open to new experiences. Not everyone is an A-type character or an extrovert or such, and that's fine. But when I mean be open to learning, is try find a new thing out every day, whatever it might be. Like even if it's just today I'm gonna try and find out, why the interest rate is changing, what the MPC is, what even in the space of what we deal with, why do shoppers do this, or why do people think like that? Try and just be excited about learning a new thing, whatever it might be. I can't give an example, but try and find out something that you haven't found out. Of course, every day is a bit difficult, but even if it's every week, try and find something out about either a person or something. That's only 52 things here that you need to learn. And I don't necessarily think it's not just the act of learning that thing, but I think it will probably filter into the rest of your life and your business. So if you find a keen interest in learning or understanding new things or people, I think it filters off into the rest of your work. So it makes you understand yourself and make you understand other people better. And it's probably going back to our first notion of empathy. So if you're keen to find out about a country, you're probably then going to find out about the language, then the food, then the this, then the that. That's what I've done just because that's my interest ever since I was small. I remember when I was like 10 or 12, I tried learning I learned every country in the world, and I learned every capital in 3 or 4 of the continents.
Sure.
It's just I had a game. It's just what interested me. And that's just an example, and that's not to say no one else is smarter or better. No, not at all. But I think it's just that is how it's worked for me. Just a keen interest to learn. So if you have that keen interest to find out about people, what motivates them, and gets things in business going, I think that's generally a very, very, very good start. And that's from maybe a softer side. And I would say maybe from a more technical perspective, I think it would be whatever your job is, try and be the best at it. And by that, it might not necessarily be I'm an account manager, you're an account manager, you're an account manager, and the 3 of us, and we all get given a target. You get 10%, you've grown 10% CAGR, I've grown 5, and my person next year is -3. Yes, whatever that might be. There's macroeconomic factors that might influence that. But within yourself, you must also have the maturity and confidence to be like, as long as I'm doing the best job that I can, and I'm trying to do the best that I can in this position, not an issue.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, especially at our lower levels where we started off, there's many things that are out of your realm of influence. You can't really do much about. If the economy drops and no one's buying, you can't do anything about that. But when you grow, in your business, once you start trying to be the best at whatever you're doing, it will help you also then have a better understanding of how to influence or what the influences of business are. Because once you've mastered whatever it is that you're doing, you will probably gain interest into how to make yourself even better. And the way you make yourself better is by knowing what that person does. So it's also, there's the day-to-day technical understanding of what you're doing, which I struggle with, because it's like the balance between, how to be a nice guy and these things, but also just having this clear understanding of, what is the forecast, what do I need to do, what are the fundamentals, what are the 4 or 5 hours I spend a week just going through the numbers and analyzing. So from the technical spaces, try and understand the 2 or 3 critical deliverables in your job better than anyone else in the business, and be the key subject matter expert at whatever it might be. Once you've done that and hone that with your relationship building, you build those 2 things together, it'll be great. And I've seen that with a lot of my friends who have been worked in corporate, who've left. Some of the guys who have started bottles, they have that, and they wanted to be the best at what they were doing in that space because I just saw an insight. Other guys, Jordan Wallace, who started an agency, he was a marketing guru and X, but he saw as like, there's actually a gap, and this, I might not be a corporate person, but I want to be the best digital agency in Africa, And what he did is he just spent time over 10 years just honing the skills of running a business. He's not a finance person or this, but he spent 10 years trying to hone that. There's other guys, when it comes to the more, the senior guys, Darren Bassa, Mzamo Masito, all these guys who we look up to, and you're like, okay, what are these guys doing? They're not maybe necessarily in the entrepreneurial space, but when you saw those guys and what they were doing and they moved around, you're like, oh no, this guy, he wants to be the best, not necessarily just to show off, but he wants to be the best because, and when you see those guys who are motivated to be the best at what they're doing, it filters through. You want to work for guys who want to be the best. You influenced, so try and be the best at what you're doing, and try and just find out more about anything each day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is powerful. Thank you so much.
Right here.
Big Mike, big homie. Guys, This is a guy that has 11 years of absolutely phenomenal experience working in the biggest of the biggest, working for the best of the best. And he is true to the advice that he gives. Learn and be curious. Ask questions, challenge, want to find out. Don't be comfortable with the status quo. And look to be the best. Even if it's on a small scale. Even if you're the best in your family, the best in your streets, but find that one thing that you can hone in and grow something out of. If you're offline, make sure that you switch on. And like I keep trying to tell you, I promise you, it's going to be a movie. One love.